Welcome to my Business and Property Business Lockdown Rescue series of webinars. In this webinar, I'm interviewing Mohit Chopra, he's a solicitor, and getting his take on what's going on in the current market to find out what he thinks at the moment, what's working, what's not working, what's on. Okay, well, very good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. So most of the audience are property investors at different levels, some developers, and we've been running a series of webinars as I discussed with you how things are being affected during lockdown. How's life different for you office-wise? And I'll get to the next questions after that. So how's things office-wise? How are you working?
Well, like most listeners, we're all working from home and have set up remote communications with our clients. So that's via the phone or via Skype or via some other sort of video call conferencing facility. I've only been into the office maybe once or twice just to check important correspondence, but otherwise, in terms of communication, it's not really affected the way I work so much, to be honest with you. And I think most firms are working effectively in the same way as well.
How are you working? Because one of the other solicitors I use struggling some days because all of his files are in the office.
Well, we store everything electronically in the cloud, so there are a lot of law firms that are still heavily reliant on paper files, but we have been working electronically for quite a while, so all our email correspondence is easily accessible in the cloud, and so our documents as well. So it's not impacted me so much as maybe some other practitioners that are highly paper-based.
Sure. Tell us a little bit about you and your company.
Okay, so I've been qualified since 2009, and the majority of my work is property transactional-based work, both in residential and commercial. I tend to focus more on the commercial side, so dealing with individual buy-to-let investors, family offices, investment companies, and my work could range from just buying a straightforward vacant commercial property, mixed-use buildings with tenancies in place, or buying a piece of land subject to an option agreement, or dealing with trying to land bank various parcels of land, and working with the developer on an option agreement through planning and then through sale, disposal. So I do a range of work.
And more recently, delayed completion deals.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So clients exchanging on a property, and then we have a delayed completion 6 months, a year later, or just general option agreements where we're entering an option to buy a piece of land. They obtain the planning, and then we exercise the option and complete on the property at a later date.
Yeah. So tell me, one of the things that jumps immediately to mind is the fact that Land Registry has been closed, or it certainly was last week, as far as I'm aware.
Strange enough, actually. So Land Registry are closed to the public, so they're not doing anything face-to-face anymore, and the majority Land Registry employees are working from home. But the recent update which I received on the 8th of April, so as an e-services business customer, they regulate update us. So what they said is they are maintaining their current level of service even though their offices are closed. Since 20th of March, they processed 332,000 applications to search the register, and they've made over 30,000 changes to the register. So they're still working as hard as they can. If there are any urgent applications that need to be prioritised, for example, if they need to deal with the sale of a property which is currently not registered in the owner's name, then they will try and prioritise those applications, or where there are people facing genuine hardship and they need to refinance, for example, they will try and process those applications more urgently than anything else. Unfortunately, they're not accepting any more telephone calls, so everything has to be done by email, which does mean that it takes slightly longer to get a response or to get an update from them. They're still operational.
So are all solicitors on the same email system, or is it only people who are cloud based?
No, so as long as you have an e-services account, which the majority of solicitors firms will do, even licensed conveyancers will do, they can access Land Registry through a portal or a specialist contact centre as well. Whereas members of the public, you wouldn't be able to gain access or sign up to this because you have to be a registered business.
Okay, cool. So how does it differ at the moment from normal time wise for let's say for you acting for the purchaser?
Well, so if I'm acting for the buyer, then I think we can still well, I mean, the documentation would come from the seller's solicitor. So let me just think how it would affect them. I mean, they'd still be able to obviously download probably official copies quite easily. It might be when they need to make applications to change the register. So say, for example, there is a restriction on there, or unilateral notice, or even a charge that may have or should come off the register because they've been dealt with during the seller's ownership at some point in time, and we as the buyer's conveyancer need that to be removed prior to exchange or completion, then I think they would find perhaps delays in trying to deal with that more urgently than usual, unless they make an application saying, well, this is a priority application because the seller needs to sell quite urgently because they're having some sort of financial issues, and Land Registry should speed up the application. Me myself, if I'm acting for the buyer, which I have done recently on a transaction, I've had slight delays in trying to get back OS1 searches and bankruptcy searches. So whereby when we exchange on a property, we do an OS1 search, which gives to the buyer or the lender or the charge holder, and it gives us a priority period for a set number of days, which means our application gets priority. Usually those come back straight away, and when I mean straight away, I mean within the hour, but now they're taking a matter of days to come back.
Okay, what about
delays street, but they're trying to assure solicitors that things are as normal.
Okay, because I know last time I spoke to one of the other solicitors we used about registering a restriction, which is probably just before the update. So now you can actually register restrictions as per normal as well, yeah.
Yeah, as long as we give a genuine reason why it's urgent, then we should be able to get that done as a priority, correct?
Okay, but something that's not urgent would just have to wait in line.
It'll just go in the normal queuing system, and let's kind of differentiate between what's urgent and non-urgent. I mean, let's just say I don't know, we've got a leasehold title, and usually on leasehold titles, there'd be a restriction in favour of the management company before any disposition, which would usually say something along the lines of, before we register any sort of disposition, the management company needs to confirm that the tenant has complied with the relevant clauses in the lease. the Land Registry would probably say, well, that's not really an urgent application because it's just a consent from the management company that needs to be processed. Whereas if we have an application from, for example, a lender where they need to stick a charge or a restriction on the property, they might consider that more urgent than anything else because we need to protect the lender's interest by way of a restriction or some sort of notice on the register to avoid anyone trying to deal with that property beforehand.
Yeah, so I could register with you now. A loan agreement RX1, yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. And as long as we give a proper reason, then there's no reason for them not to delay it or not to just kind of put it in the normal queuing process.
Cool. Okay, so I'm glad that's been sorted. Right. So mortgage companies and interaction with drawing mortgages down. How's that been for you?
Well, I think what I probably need to focus on first is buyers and what I have seen certainly in the last 2 weeks is the majority of buyers kind of postponing exchanges just because of what the government have said about moving it.
Yeah, because you can actually, they've actually redone that again, haven't they? One of the reasons for being able to leave home is to be able to move house.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it has been caveated as well. So, but the problem we have is that buyers are just generally slightly nervous about moving, going out into the public, and then moving into someone's house, and they don't know how clean it is, or who's been there, or what the status of that person has been before. So I think there's that issue as well. So I've unfortunately not had any new exchanges happen. I mean, where we have exchanged prior to the lockdown, then those completions have gone ahead, and none of the lenders have actually pulled the lending. And the biggest one I actually did last week was 3.5 million, which was a commercial refinance with 8 flats above. So that went ahead. So I mean, lenders are still lending, but I think the problem we have is where valuations haven't been done, and valuers not being able to go there, and then perhaps giving desktop valuations but caveating that valuation by saying, well, look, we've not physically been to the property, we haven't done an internal inspection, we cannot confirm whether the actual layout is as per the borrower, the lender is saying. And then secondly, we don't know when we come out of COVID-19 what the impact will be on the actual property market and the prices, because things in the news and financial experts saying that prices are going to drop by 5 to 20%. So it's difficult for lenders, because who knows if this is going to be worth what they lend out after COVID. So
yeah, I mean, some of them are brokers that are doing desktops valuation, and I know one of the more recognised groups reckoned it was going to be about a 3% drop with a 6 months bounce. But yeah, so how is it with desktops? How are you protecting against things like subsidence and that type of stuff?
Well, I mean, those can be. I mean, we have searches to cover cover us for anything like, for example, subsidence. I mean, you do an environmental search, and then based on data that can be picked up. But so some things in valuation reports which you can't usually get from some surveys is for example, there might be Japanese knotweed in the garden or in the neighbour's garden, which those only get pulled up when we read the valuation report, which gets sent to us. So let's just say we're acting for the lender, or the lender and borrower. Valuation report will set out certain things which solicitors need to look at, and said, like Japanese knotweed could be one, or there could be internal alterations in the property, which if the valuer doesn't go in to the property, he won't pick up on. For example, someone could have knocked down a chimney breast, and then we'd have to check if there was building regulation consent, or there could be an extension at the back of the property, and we need to check whether there's planning permission or building regs consent. But those are things that only a valuer or surveyor can put in his report if he's actually physically been to the physically been to the property. And those are things as solicitors we need to check up on if all the paperwork's there. And if we don't have the valuation report, we've only got a desktop saying, well, look, based on our knowledge of the market or based on recent house price, this is what's been sold and this is what we think the value of the property is. It puts us in a very difficult position because, let's just say, at a later date, if the seller or the new buyer wants to sell and their lawyers ask us for these documents or these things and we didn't pick up on it, then we potentially be negligent.
Yeah.
We really are, because
but there are indemnities you can take out to protect yourselves.
Yeah, there is indemnity policies, but we only take indemnity policies out if we need to protect against a certain risk. And if we don't know, or it's not noted that there is a loft conversion or extension of that, then we wouldn't bother getting the indemnity insurance. So
sure.
The insurance is only there if you haven't got the proper documentation in place, or it's missing, or something's been done within a time period where you know enforcement's not going to happen afterwards.
Okay, cool.
If you want it, I mean, I don't know whether there's a blanket policy available. I doubt it, because usually you insure against a specific risk.
Okay, yeah, I mean, nothing's for definite anyway, is it? Because I bought a property once that had a chimney stack in the bedroom and in the loft, right the way through to the roof, and it had been removed down the stairs, and there had been no, what they call a saddle, put in place to support it at all. So it was like, it could have come down at any time, and that wasn't picked up in the survey, so it's not always 100% correct. Okay, look, I'm going to say to everyone, if you have any questions for Mohit, could you please type in the question box your questions, or just pop your hand up and we can come to you direct and you can talk your question, which is always easier to communicate that way. So any questions you have for Mohit, please fire away. In fact, here we go. We have David Nicholas has got a question for you. Fire away, David. You just need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi, David.
Hello. How are you?
Yep, we're good. Thank you.
Good.
What's your question for Mohit?
So I've got a couple of ventures I'm looking at the moment, both commercial. One of them has an apartment above, and the other one has 2 floors above. And I wanted to buy the commercial in the SIP fund, but have the freehold and the above floors separately out of the SIP fund. How do I do that? Do I have to buy it first and then sell it into the SIP fund, or is there a clever way of doing it that will save me on taxes or whatever?
So have you discussed the accountant or any?
Sorry, you broke up then.
So,
have you discussed the venture with an accountant or a tax advisor?
So
yeah,
I think you might be. Someone's gone a little bit near to the mic, and it sounds like someone's breathing in the mic and breathing over the top of Mohit. And Mohit said that from a taxable point of view, that's more an accountant's thing. He could ask questions reference.
Legally, how do you do it then?
Yeah, from a structure perspective, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what would happen is we would get your accountant, tax advisor, so we won't actually physically set up any sort of SIP pension fund So what would happen?
It's already set up. So there's finances in there to buy it, but there's obviously a flat above.
Yeah.
Which I can't buy in the SIP. I can only buy commercial. And the other one has permission to develop the 2 floors into 3 apartments. So I don't want that in the SIP either. But I want the SIP has the money to buy. Say there's 20 grand coming from the one, and it's only £200,000. So 20 grand from the commercial below. Therefore, it would be quite comfortable to buy the whole lot for £200,000. The SIP fund, it would. But then there's these 2 floors above which are kind of free. Okay, so I don't want them in the SIP fund. I want them out. How do I split that before or after?
Yeah.
So what I would suggest, and obviously Glenn, I mean you've got experience in this as well, but what I may suggest is that we buy the freehold, and then if you're buying cash, that's very easy because we buy the freehold and then we just basically sell the commercial and the upper parts on 999-year leases, and SIP funds can hold long leasehold interest in property, or in alternative, what we could do is we could ask the seller to break it up for us on completion. So it's really what a tax point of view, from a financial advice point of view, is better.
Yeah, you get multiple dwelling relief, would you not, if there's planning already?
Yeah, correct. I mean, there'd be some sort of SDLT mitigation and some tax as well.
So I would look at buying each individual flat. You'd have to buy the freehold as one freehold, and then the freehold company, which always has to be a different entity to the leasehold owners, you would split one into your SIP fund and then issue leaseholds for each of the flats.
Would that make 2 taxes there because I'm selling the property twice?
If you're doing it on the same day, when I've done this in the past, and I'm not sure if things have changed, Mohit, but doing a double transaction on the same day only triggers one set of stamp.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, so if you immediately onward sell on the same day and it's part of the same transaction, then you don't need to pay SDLT twice. You just pay it once, but we will have to file an SDLT return with a nil consideration.
Okay.
Or the other thing, just kind of thinking out loud, is that I mean, it's kind of very similar to what we discussed before in terms of title splitting. But yeah, I mean, if the seller breaks down each parcel, so what happens is he's conveying to you the freehold for a nominal price, because once you've got long leasehold units in the building, the freehold is really only like a nominal value, like £1 or something like that. So on completion, the freehold like £1, and then we split the value.
So could I buy the property for the full asking price within the SIP, and then the same day sell the upper floors and the freehold floor back?
But you've got what have you got? Commercial downstairs, haven't you?
Commercial on the bottom, and there's nothing above it. 2 empty floors that have planning permission for apartments.
No,
okay, yeah, I think you could, isn't it? Because the upper floors are not actually residential at the moment. No, it's just got planning, hasn't it?
Yeah,
but could I legally sell that for £1 outside of, or would the SIP fund say, hold on, you bought the whole property for 200 grand, you're selling it for £1? The upper floors, is that like a tax evasion or anything like that?
No, your problem there, Mohit, is the fact that you've got to own the freehold in a different entity to the leasehold.
I don't think that's the question. I think the question is, can he first buy the freehold for 200 grand,
mm-hmm.
and then the freehold is owned by you, and then you title split the top to the else. That's what you're asking, isn't it? But I don't think you could sell it for £1. I mean, you going to have to sell it for some sort of market consideration. So because it must obviously
Okay, that's what I mean. Yeah.
it's got to be worth something because it's a chief planning permission, so there's got to be a market value.
So I'd set up a limited company to buy the freehold, and then on the same day you acquire it, you also have to get the architects to do all the land registry applications. So it's all pre-done, and they've all got their own registration numbers for land registry. So literally, you buy it in that freehold company, and then sell it to your SIP fund, the commercial aspect of it, and then the other bits you want to keep, you sell the individual, the planning application bit to yourself, but you can split the flats already, can't you, Mohit? Ready for when you actually do the conversion.
You can, I mean, there are various things that can be done, but I would obviously strongly advise that whoever you instruct works in conjunction with your accountant, or your tax advisor to make sure that it's done correctly.
Okay.
If he wants to sell on the freehold for the ground rents.
No, you're right. I mean, obviously, that's based on the ground rent and how much it goes up by, etc. and stuff. But I think I mean what I was trying to say, nominal value. I mean, it's not excessive, is it?
It's got to add up to the purchase price basically, but it doesn't have to take into account the profit that you're going to make by splitting the flats. And then you've got to decide whether or not you're going to keep the flats long term and put them on individual buy-to-let mortgages. Because if you put them on one commercial mortgage as a group of flats, you're not going to be able to borrow as much.
Correct.
Okay, so if you're keeping long term and you want maximum leverage from it, then as long as you split the down bit that you put into your SIP and then the upper flats, split them all into different titles, and then you can mortgage each flat, and that way you can max your leverage on it if you wanted to.
Okay, do you do the split of the flat titles, the 3 flats, before you complete it all?
Yeah, I would. I'd get it all ready to go. But
you can do that before, yeah.
Sorry, Mohit, you was going to say?
I mean, you can do that before, or you could develop the three flats and then drop lease plans and then grant them long leases. So it's up to you really.
Okay. Thank you.
It's probably cheaper if you do it right at the beginning, because you're putting them all into their own entities right at the beginning, and then they're ready to refinance or do whatever you want without having to spend more to do that.
Yeah. Sounds like a plan. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, David. Okay, let's go and have a look, see what other questions we've got. Right, so Mohit, you still there, okay?
Yes, I'm still there, yeah.
Okay. I think there will be plenty of opportunity with the shrink of the economy for building a property portfolio, but how realistic is it to raise money with lenders if they cannot do surveys just yet? And majority of lenders don't rely on desktop analysis. That, Shiraz, is really more a question for a mortgage broker. And our mortgage broker will back on again on Friday for you to ask any questions for changes that is happening. I don't think that's really a question for you, is it, Mohit?
No, I mean the mortgage broker would obviously have insight into what lenders are still in business at this point in time, and if they are doing desktops, what lenders will rely on the desktops. I did touch upon it kind of earlier on when we spoke about how it impacts us as lawyers, desktop valuations, and if they want to go ahead based on the desktop valuation. But in terms of the specific question about raising money at the moment and how to get finance now, then I'd certainly get a mortgage broker to advise, because he will have connections to various lenders that are still lending, that are still open for business, and he'll know the LTV rates and interest rates and stuff that are being offered at this time.
Cool, thank you. Right, let's go to Louisa. Hi Louisa, you need to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hiya, you have a question for Mohit, yeah?
Yeah. I have a property at the moment that I'm looking at. I call it mixed use. It has the basement, ground floor, then first and second. The ground floor is like a nightclub. The basement is nightclub. The ground floor is like a pizza takeaway. While the first and second is presently occupied by a charity. Now, their lease have run out. The owner, who's now the vendor, does not want to renew their lease. They've actually gone to court to get them to leave. But now it's a couple that own this property. The husband has died, so now the lady wants to sell. My question is, even though this place is being sold vacant possession and the charity is still in place, how easy will it be for them to leave if I'm buying it vacant possession, or do I still need to go to court with them?
Glenn, do you mind if I go ahead with this one?
Yeah.
If the seller is selling vacant possession,
Yeah.
and you as the buyer are buying vacant possession, I would honestly not worry yourself too much about it, because it is the seller's responsibility and the seller's solicitor's responsibility to ensure that
Okay.
property is vacant and there's no one in occupation, but also there are no occupational leases or tenancies or licenses or subleases or anyone unauthorised in occupation. And if there is post completion and you'll find yourself with someone or sitting tenant, then obviously they're in breach of contract and then you have remedies in place. I mean, they're just small things to do kind of before exchange, and it's just simple things like check it, make sure it's empty, but also your solicitor will confirmation in writing that the property is empty and there are no leases in place. But I mean, it's not on you to ensure that it's empty. It's obviously the onus on the seller to ensure.
Okay.
Okay. So Louisa, can I just ask?
Yeah, thank you.
Is you just buying the top bit that has the charity in, or is you buying the whole building?
The whole building.
Okay. And is the pizza people left and the nightclub people left?
No, they are there.
Right. Okay. Because if you're thinking of developing the top bit into flats, you're going to be very, very restricted on lending, because a lot of lenders won't lend on fast food, above fast food.
Yeah, okay.
And some have got restrictions with nightclubs below as well. So you're going to have trouble selling them with a nightclub below.
Okay. So it would be good to seek this vacant possession of everything.
I'd want vacant possession of everything, and if they've still got a lease of some time with the pizza place or the nightclub, then they probably can't evict them. They'd have to negotiate a settlement. But while they're there, the mortgageability restriction, I know NatWest will lend on properties above chip shops and fast food, but the majority of lenders won't lend.
Okay.
All right, so it is.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's going to make it very difficult to sell them, because people are restricted on the lenders that they can use to buy them off you. If you're going to refinance them afterwards, you're going to be very restricted, and normally most lenders won't take that more than a certain amount of proportion of the flats in a building.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, it's good to know. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thanks, Mohit, for that one.
No problem.
Okay, so right, let's just go to this one. We'll go slightly out of order. Right, on a property that they would still like to buy, and they've had their funding taken away. Obviously, you've got, if they've exchanged and put a deposit down, there's going to be a completion date, isn't there? And then they're going to serve a 10-day notice. Has there been any government stuff put in to protect anybody in that position?
Not that I'm aware of, no. So contractually, we have an agreed completion date. The only thing I can suggest is trying to come to some sort of mutual agreement with the seller in having that varied. I'm sure everyone is going to understand the current situation and be sympathetic, and perhaps offer some sort of incentive, maybe pay a bit of contractual interest to extend it over whatever period you want to extend it by. But certainly, the buyer does need to try and find alternative lending, alternative source of finance, if he believes that he is still able to complete at a later date, and he sets a varied date, then it's certainly important that alternative finance is found. But no, I mean, there's nothing from the government in terms of advice, guidance, or anything statutory which will stop the buyer losing their deposit.
Yeah, I know when the Chinese government, this is before what's going on now, restricted the amount of cash that people could take out of the country. There was a lot of Chinese who'd paid deposits on off-plan stuff that then weren't able to complete, so they were losing all sorts of money left, right and centre.
Yeah, so it's difficult for everyone at the moment that had secured funding and have now lost that funding line. It's scary.
And a lot of developers are quite likely to say thank you for the 10% deposit.
Yeah, I mean, look, contractually, they're allowed to. I mean, you've got to remember. Sorry, let me just. I mean, the trigger point is the notice to complete. So,
Yeah.
So depending on whether notice to complete has been served, then you know that you are kind of in the danger zone. So if you have received a notice to complete, then time is against you, and then you've got to remember that once that notice period expires, which is 10 working days after the day of the notice, then you've got to actually confirm rescission of the contract and say, look, the contract's being rescinded. So that's when time starts ticking, and that's when you need to be worried by. So if whoever whose question we're discussing, if they've not received it, then they're okay at the moment, but they certainly do need to kind of enter into dialogue with their lawyer and the seller solicitor and try and establish how they can save this deposit that they put down on this property.
Yeah, I think my most interesting one like that was some clients of mine were buying an office block for 5 million, and they paid £100,000 deposit, and they had a private funder who pulled out on completion day. And they got served notice on a 5 million deal. They got served a 10-day notice, but we actually managed to find someone to put the 5 million in.
Good.
So that was a bit hairy, and that was done by advertising for somebody as a profit share in the Times.
No, I mean, look, if we're talking about a non-regulated product, and the person that's buying this property is not going to live there, then there are alternative finance available for private investors or bridging finance investors as well, who are still got an appetite to lend in this market. It may be slightly more expensive, but it's something again which your mortgage broker can talk about in a bit more detail when they're on net.
Okay, so I know we're running fairly. You all right for time at the moment?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Okay. Justin's asked, what happens if the seller pulls out after exchange?
If the seller pulls out after exchange, well, again, so we have rights underneath the contract, and most likely your deposit will be held in the seller's solicitor's client account, and if the seller decides not to proceed, then we can request for that deposit back with interest, and there will be some other remedies available to you under the contract. But the main thing is that as long as the seller solicitor is holding the deposit, then we know it's safeguarded in the solicitor's client account, and we can request that back.
Yeah, also if you have something, he's asking more and interpreting his question, if you're doing a delayed completion and you spend 100 grand on work on their property, and then you sell it on to a third party, what I normally do is I get power of attorney to be able to complete on it without, overruling any of their permission needed. But how would you deal with a delayed completion where you've exchanged contracts with somebody and you've spent 100 grand on their property, you put a restriction on their property for that amount? How would you deal with that?
Okay, so if we exchange contracts and the seller doesn't want to sell, but the buyer still wants to go ahead and complete the transaction. So let's just say then there is no power of attorney. Then in order to affect the sale, affect the transfer, the best thing to do would be issue a claim for specific performance.
Yeah, okay.
Specific performance is a mechanism whereby the court will perform the contract on behalf of the seller. So you'll get a court order saying that the judge or the court has authorised the sale of the property, and that in effect can be sent to Land Registry, and that will affect the sale. Obviously send over monies, etc. to the seller, but if they refuse to sign the transfer, you've got a court order. It's called specific performance.
Yeah. I mean, I've been kind of caught out on something that took a bit longer than we anticipated because of having to deal with water supply, and the option timed out, and we've had to make sure that we've covered for lots of things that are probably quite unusual. But yeah, I'd still prefer power of attorney. I think, or I suppose you could put a loan agreement, combination between a loan agreement and a restriction on the property, because through the loan agreement you can then chase the money down, can't you?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So you've got that. I mean, the power of attorney is obviously the best thing, because you can just step into the shoes of the seller and form that contract without the expense and aggravation and headache of having to go to court and spend money on legal expenses and waste time.
Okay, so specific performance is a fairly easy thing to follow through then, yeah?
Well, I mean, it's about issuing a claim, but I think It can get done, but I think the problem is the cost of the litigation, which is very shocking. This getting to draw up a claim form, and so it's not something that you want to have to do in the middle of a deal.
No, especially when it's an assignable contract and you don't want to mess up the buyers.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's something we can talk about, making sure it's set up right for future transactions like that, with a combination of everything, I think. Right, so I realise that we're slightly over time. I've got a lot of people that have asking questions and got their hands up, and still quite a lot of questions to go through. How do you fancy doing another one of these in a few weeks' time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you can, even if you want to schedule me next week or on a fortnightly basis, I'm happy to answer questions.
Cool. Okay, well, I'll throw that open to everyone to drop me an email to just give us what you'd like to do about that. I think I've been doing every 2 or 3 questions, so there's a few statements in here. So, okay, anything you'd like to do to sum up? Or if you were giving someone some advice, if they came to you and said, look, we've found this bargain buy to let and we want to proceed, we've got a mortgage offer, any advice that you'd make to them?
Well, certainly I'd kind of establish initially if whoever's coming to me has got a track record or has some sort of history in and dealing with investment properties, because it's quite a scary time if you are dipping your toes in for the first time. But having said that, look, if someone is happy to proceed, they're confident about the deal, they know it's a good deal, it makes commercial sense, and they've got funding, then what I would suggest is that in order to safeguard your position, we'd probably do a simultaneous exchange and completion on the same day. So that means we exchange and we complete on the same day. So we do all the usual due diligence, list inquiries beforehand. I report to the client saying we're now ready to go. I notify the lender we're doing a simultaneous exchange and completion, require the funds on this set date.
Yeah.
Fill in the certificate, send it off to the lender, confirming we're satisfied with the title. Lender sends us the money on the set date, reach that date, and we complete on that date. And that way, there's no risk of having funding pulled. Yeah,
no, that's a great idea. Okay, well, look, thank you very much for joining us this evening. I apologise for those of you who we haven't answered the questions. It's probably the longest over we've gone on our 45-minute thing at the moment. I'll thank you very much, Mohit, for joining us, and look forward to speaking to you again very soon on here, and also no doubt in the next few days about some deals that are going on at the moment.
Brilliant. All right, good night everyone, thank you. Cheers.
So thank you everybody for joining us this evening. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please give me some feedback, it would be great, by email, that would be wonderful. Tomorrow evening, the lady estate agent who manages 250 properties, who was at council last week because her son is ill, she's going to be doing tomorrow, and Anthony Lyons, who is the editor of YPN magazine, and also has 40 properties of his own and a development project, is doing Thursday. And then we have our broker back on our normal Friday broker spot. So thanks very much for joining us this evening. Have a great rest of the evening, and most of all, be safe.